What's going on, everybody? All right, this is Wednesday. Wednesday's Q&A day, which always revolves around your questions. So if you like the topics, if you don't like the topics, if you like the questions, I would say ask a question. Ask it a question that you have as a topic that you want brought up. Don't hesitate to do that down below in the comments. Every week when I look at the Wednesday video from the week before to see what new questions rolled in, and if there aren't enough questions from that week, I go into the vault and I find a question that I've had for a while that hasn't been answered yet. Now, the last couple of weeks, I've been a little bit light on questions, so I don't know if you guys don't like me anymore. I don't know if you don't like Q&A anymore, but we've been a little bit light, but we do still have 5 questions this week. But I will say, 2 of the questions were similar enough, that were overlapped enough, that I'm going to combine those 2 and give one response to the 2 questions, because a lot of the response that I would give kind of answers both of them. So we will have 5 questions this week, 4 responses, 4 thoughts, 4 opinions on what I think about the topics that you bring up, or share whatever the story is, or whatever. Now, again, later this week, I've got at least a couple of episodes coming out. One is going to be my pickups from the month of September, including one of my favorite pickups in a really, really long time, a card I've been hunting for over 2 years. Also, we'll have our off-topic episode for the month. Remember, we do one on my channel, one on Darren's channel, Return to Collecting. And this month is my turn to host the guest. And our guest is going to be none other than Ray from Philly, one of the nicest and best guys in the hobby. And he will be on. We actually just recorded that, but that will post here in the next 2 or 3 days. So be on the lookout for that. And with that, again, questions for upcoming episodes down below in the comments. But let's look at our first question here. This week's first question says, I have a topic suggestion for an upcoming episode. Which card or cards in your collection has or have the most sentimental value to you, and why? For me, it's the 1987 Topps Cal Ripken Jr., given to me by my dad when I first started collecting. That card sparked my interest in collecting, and I have never stopped since. Thanks for the great videos. Well, you know I love this question. This question is right up my alley. It is something that I've asked on Monday episodes before, of share a story of a memorable pickup or a memorable purchase or a card that means a lot to you. And to me, the whole hobby, it really doesn't revolve around the values of the cards. It doesn't revolve around the rarity of the cards. It revolves around the memory of the cards. To me, the memory means as much as anything. There are cards in my collection that for a certain price, I would sell them. I would. Hey, hate me, love me, whatever you think, but we have a price for most things. But then there are some things where the value of that item to you is so much more than it would be to anybody else. And that is where the memory comes in. The cards that we remember how we got it, where we got it, who were we with when we got it, those are the most special cards in our collection. And when we sometimes will flip through our collection and go, all right, let's see, which cards have I fallen out of love with? Which cards am I willing to part with? Which cards am I willing to consolidate to get that big card that I've been wanting for a while? My guess is, for almost all of us, the hardest cards to part with are the ones that have a sentimental value, specifically an important story of how you obtained it. And I've told the story before about my Ernie Banks card. In fact, last week ago Monday, I was on the Odd Couple Live on Tony Liebrick's channel, Southern Collector 14, with my buddies. And when we were on, Tony asked us to share about our cornerstone card in our collection, the card that kind of tells the most about your collecting. And I shared my 54 Topps Ernie Banks, and that definitely is an important card, a cornerstone card with a very important story attached to it. But there's a card that means more to me than that. There's a card that means a lot more to me than that. And I've told the story, I think, once on my channel, and then I told it once on another channel. So some of you may have heard this, and some of you maybe haven't heard it. But when I was 10 years old, when I was in third grade, I was on the Red Sox, was my Little League team. And I was the pitcher on the team. I pitched. If I had the innings available to pitch, I pitched. And so I'm a Red Sox pitcher, and it's about 1987, 88. And before you know it, I become a Roger Clemens fan because he is an absolute stud at the time. He is on the Red Sox. He is a pitcher. So I identified so much with Roger Clemens, and he became my guy for baseball. Now, some of you love Clemens, some of you hate Clemens. That's okay. He will always have a very special place in my heart. I've seen him pitch live many times. I saw him throw a shutout at the Oakland Coliseum, and I followed him closely. Well, at this time in about now 1988 or 89, when I'm heavily into cards and I'm heavily into Roger Clemens, I went to a card show. And there were not a ton of card shows at the time, but one of the main card shows was a card show in Concord, California, which was about 40 minutes away from us. And they held it in like an Elks Lodge or one of those sort of, higher order of the elk or whatever, these clubs for older retired guys where they go and hang out. And one of the members of the club was a card collector and a card dealer. And so he would put on these card shows. And what he did he wasn't trying to make money. He was just trying to create this community event. And so we would go, and what would happen is when you came in the show, it was like $1 or $2 to get in. And when you got in, you would get a ticket. Like those tickets where it's got the keep this coupon, the ticket, you split them down the middle, you pull it off, and then one goes into the raffle and one goes you hang on to and you try to win. So we would go to this card show time and time again, and I never won. But the amazing thing is this is in about 1988, 89, and the raffle prizes was every hour on the hour they raffled off a $100 voucher that could be used in the show. Basically, they were taking all the entry costs for the people with the tickets at the door, and they were turning around and giving it back to the customers, which had to be good for the dealers because then the dealers had money kind of going around the room. And so we would, wait for an hour and nope, didn't win. Next hour, nope, didn't win. And we would stay for 3-4 hours at these shows because this was sort of like the prime card shows that we would attend. Well, about the third or fourth time we attended the show, my brother and I kind of came up with this idea of, a lot, because what they would do is they would read the numbers and people would say, oh, that person's not here anymore. They wait. Nobody would come up and claim it. That person must have left. Read another number. Nobody would claim it. That person must have left. So somewhere in my head, I said, what we need to do, since we're just hanging out at the show, is as people are leaving, we need to say, hey, are you leaving? Yes, we're leaving. Would it be okay if I have your raffle ticket? Well, sure. Here you go. So before long, my brother and I had about 20, 25 raffle tickets each. And so they would read the number and we'd have them in number order and we'd be going down seeing if any of them matched because we were collecting the tickets of the people leaving for the day. Well, at that time, my prized card, my dream card, my absolute dream card was the 84 Fleer Roger Clemens Fleer update card. I wanted that card so bad, but it was so far out of reach because the card in Beckett was $80. And at the time, if Beckett said it was $80, you'd go to a card show, they were asking $80. That's just the way that it worked then, right? I mean, a lot of us remember those times. So eventually, my number gets pulled. And I run up to the front to the guy at the speaker. I give him the ticket. He checks it. Sure enough, I won the $100 voucher. And I am like so nervous, so beside myself. And I had been at the show all day. So I had already found and spotted the 1984 Fleer Update Roger Clemens that was in the room for $80. So I immediately ran to my dad, showed my dad that I won, which I'm sure he knew because he probably saw the whole thing transpire at the show. And he said, "What are you going to buy?" I said, "I'm buying the Clemens." I ran straight over to the table and I hand over my $100, they were in $20 increments. I handed him 4 of the $20 increment vouchers for the Clemens card. And this right here is that Clemens card. This is the exact one that I got that day, that I got from the vouchers, from the raffle. Now, at the time, again, $80 was like, it's probably like $400 or $500 now. It's just like so far out of my price range. I would show up to a show with like maybe $20, 15 or $20. So to be able to land an $80 card, which was my absolute dream card, is something I'll never forget. And this is the exact one. Again, this was probably about 1989, 1990. So we're talking 35, 40 years ago that I got this card. And there is not an amount of money that I would, well, is there? I can't imagine letting this card go. It would have to be like $500,000 for me to get. It would have to be money where I could like go quit my job. But this card is the most special card in my collection. And I have a lot of special cards, but this is number one because of the story and because of the memory that I have attached to the card. And that to me is the most important part of the hobby. It's not owning the cards. It's the story of acquiring the cards and saving for the cards and planning for the cards and hunting for the cards and then finding the right one and making the deal happen. And then you end up with something like this. This next one says, "Hey Greg, I've been vacationing in Hawaii for a few weeks, so I haven't asked you a new question for a while. Here's one for you. Do you think it would be a great idea to start a spreadsheet or any other way to document your inventory of cards and their values to make it easier for your loved ones to deal with the fallout if something were to happen to one of us collectors? Is there a website that you know of and would recommend that can put all this information in and compensate for the fluctuation of values over time? I am at the age where I am thinking of my kids and what they will have to deal with when I am gone. Any advice would be appreciated." Okay, so I think personally, one of the things that I think is really important is financial planning, future planning, estate planning. I think that's really important stuff because if you don't plan for the future and you react to the future, you're not going to be prepared for the future and things aren't going to go the way that you want them to go. And unfortunately, we don't know if tomorrow will be here for each and every one of us. And so if you have a decent amount of value in your collection, I'm assuming that you want your family members to be able to reap the benefits of that. Now, my kids don't want my cards. My wife doesn't want my cards. But I do hope that when I am gone, that I can leave them some money that would allow their life to be more comfortable, allow their life to have some less stress. And so leaving them instructions or information to be able to liquidate the collection that I have is something that I absolutely am planning to do and am working on doing. One of the arguments I have made for a long time is people say, why do you even need to get your cards graded? Who cares? Is it if it's just to authenticate them? And one of my arguments has been, I think that cards that have a decent amount of value, you need to get graded because by grading them, it makes it easier to sell them. And it provides information about the quality, about the type, about the player, it provides information that makes it easier to liquidate. And though you say, I know all about my cards, I know that these are worth money and these aren't worth money and these are worth a little bit and that's worth a little bit. But if somebody can just simply go into eBay and type in whatever's on the flip, including the grade, they know what the card is worth. And to me, I want to make it easier for them. So I believe one of the biggest reasons I believe in grading is because it makes it easier to liquidate, not necessarily for me, but for whoever ends up with them someday. Because remember, all of our cards will eventually be sold by someone. And we want that someone to have an idea of what they're worth. Now, doing it in an Excel spreadsheet could be a little bit cumbersome. It wouldn't include pictures. It wouldn't take into account the changes in values. So I have said now for a few weeks, because I came out a few weeks ago, and I said I've tried VCP, Vintage Card Prices, as a card comping app. I have tried Market Movers as a card comping app, both of which you can enter your collection into the system, and it will track the changes and fluctuations in the prices. And I came out a couple of months ago, and I told you guys that I am all in with Card Ladder. And what happened was I had Card Ladder, I had Market Movers, I had VCP, but Card Ladder had everything that I wanted. Card Ladder had the best ability to comp, in my opinion. It had the easiest way to check prices and find cards. It was far less cumbersome. It was easy to find pop reports, all of that. And it has a fantastic spot where it's called your collection on the app, and you hit the collection, and once you hit the collection, you can very, very easily upload your cards into the app. So if it's a PSA graded card, you just add, and then you type in the PSA serial number. It finds it in the PSA database. It uploads it. It finds the value, and as the values change up and down, it tracks it. I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. And a lot of people have said, oh, Greg, it's like $15 or $20 a month. I understand that. But to me, and I live in California, I don't know what things cost elsewhere. But if I, Greg, went to McDonald's today and got a Big Mac meal, if I got a Big Mac meal at McDonald's, it would be about $15. That's about what it would be. $15 in today's day and age, or $20 in today's day and age, whatever the price is very, very little, in my opinion. And people say, I already have, Disney subscription and Netflix and Hulu and this and that. And I understand that. I do understand that. But the way I look at it is, this is my hobby that I spend a lot of time on, but also this is a way, it's like a way to protect your family against getting ripped off when you someday have them sell the collection. Because if they can get into your Card Ladder app and they can go into the collection, they know exactly what you have and exactly what everything's worth as it goes up, as it goes down, and everything in between. So, am I sponsored by Card Ladder? Yes, I am absolutely saying that. But I've also told you guys, the only companies that I would be sponsored by under any circumstance are the companies that I actually use and that I believe in. And Card Ladder is the best option. So again, I've mentioned this a few times. I'll continue to mention it from time to time. It's at the end, at the outro of every episode, but the promo code MidLife lets you try it, lets you try Card Ladder for free for a month. Or if you go on Card Ladder's website, you can try Card Ladder for a week. But if you use my promo code, you can try it for a month. The other thing that you could do is you could sign up for Card Ladder for a year, and it takes $20 off the price for the year. So it saves you a few dollars. I think if you just go to their website, I don't know, maybe it's $5 or $10 off for a year. So you get the most off. Now, I negotiated those things. When Card Ladder and I decided, hey, let's work together, let's talk about this, I said, you got to give me something that's going to help out the people that are viewers of my channel. If I'm going to suggest this to them, you have to make an extra good deal for them. And they said, okay, what do you want? And I said, I want a month trial instead of a week. They said, okay. I said, I want more money off through my promo code than the other promo codes. And they said, okay. So $20 off or a free trial for a month. Try it for a month. If you don't like it, then get rid of it, but you will absolutely like it. So my answer to this is a very simple solution. You sign up for Card Ladder. You now have the best card app, the best card comping app. You have the best research tool. And you have a place to upload all of your collection, store it, and it tracks the values for you. And load it onto your spouse's phone. Put the password in, have it saved. At any time, they can check and see it and have access to your collection. This, to me, is an absolute no-brainer. So that's your answer. Easy, done deal. I really think you won't regret doing that. Question: how does one organically grow their network within the hobby with no social media? I understand it's as simple as saying hello and starting a conversation at a card show, but vendors talk to so many people during a show and others seem to be to themselves. May you give some examples of making friends within the hobby before YouTube, or connecting through social media, or purchasing a card from a vendor? Okay, this is, you've painted me into a corner with the parameters in which I can make suggestions here. The first thing I would say is social media is actually really good for social networking. Like, that's the whole point of social media, is that you can network with other people with similar interests. And so I kind of say, well, why not use social media? I think Facebook, if you're a card collector and you're not on Facebook and in a bunch of the Facebook groups, I don't understand why not. I don't understand why not. If you're not on Instagram, I don't understand why not. Now, let me say this. I am not a fan of social media. I think that things that people post on social media, say on social media, the fake information on social media is not good. It is corrupting. I don't have social media for personal use. I mean, I think I years and years ago, I had like a Facebook account and an Instagram account. And I literally shut them down like 5 or 6 years ago because it was just bad. And then I set up accounts for MidLife, for the channel. And I think when I did that, it made those other ones active. So if you've ever found me like on Facebook or Instagram, like my personal account, and you're like, why isn't he responding? It's because I literally don't open them or check them because I just think that it's like bad. So I'm assuming that's what you're saying. What I would say is have an account just for the hobby, just for networking purposes. There's really no reason. If you don't want your name out there where people can find you or something, put some nickname. I mean, Tony is Southern Collector 14. He's Southern Collector 14. I'm MidLife Cards on Instagram and Facebook. I mean, you I would use social media because that is what it's best for. But that's not your question. Your question is besides social media. I think when I was growing up, the way that we met people the best was a couple of ways. Number one, hanging out at card shops. Going to the card shop, not going in for 20 minutes and then leaving, but going in and hanging out and talking to the other customers and talking to the owner and talking to the workers, looking at the cards, making deals. You can start to organically grow some form of a network through that. But I think from my memory, if memory serves me best, the way that I've made the most connections is at card shows. And I know what you're saying. You're saying, well, at card shows, there's, 500 customers that go up to a dealer. How are they going to remember me? How am I going to know them? I would say, because what most people do is they meet them and then they connect to them on Facebook and Instagram. And then they message them, hey, good seeing you at the show today. If you come across this card and this card, let me know. You could make business cards. You could email the person. When you get home, get their email address, give them your card. Hey, remember, I'm the guy that gave you the business card today. That could work. But some of the best ways that we've really gotten to know other people in the hobby is by setting up as a dealer. So like when you set up as a dealer, there's like this few hour period where you're all kind of setting up and you're all kind of looking out for each other, and you got to go around and you look at other people's tables and you say, oh yeah, my table's over there, and other dealers are buying from you and you're buying from other dealers. And that is a really, really good way to make a memorable, lasting connection to someone. Now, depending on where you live, sometimes the table cost is really expensive. But I mean, if you could get a table for $100, maybe sell $100 worth of stuff that you're not interested in, break even, but then you have a day or two where you're making connections with other people in the hobby, that's the best way, because once you form a core group, that core group is going to kind of spread, because if you connect with 5 people and each of those people have 5 people they're connected with, and you say, hey, do you know anybody who is, sells T206s? And this guy goes, well, I have these 2 friends, and then those guys, each have another guy, and all of a sudden you've got a connection. So it does require some work, and a lot of us in the hobby are quirky. Let's face it. There's a reason that we're in the hobby, or there's a reason that we study cards, that we look through our cards on our own. A lot of us are kind of OCD types, myself very much included. A lot of us are introverted types because you can do this hobby independently. You don't have to do it as a group. And so a lot of us have some quirkiness. And a lot of other people are in the same situation as you, where they want to have a few hobby buddies, but they don't know how to make hobby buddies. So the best way to make a hobby buddy is to try to connect with other people, because I think those other people are looking to connect too. They're just not really comfortable at how to do that. So it's sort of like, in elementary school when there's a new kid at the school that shows up and you say, hey, you want to eat in our group, at lunch? And they go, okay. And now all of a sudden they're a friend in your group. It's just like that. But if you're anti-social media, I would say do it for the hobby only. Don't do it for personal use, for connecting with family members and friends. And I literally have most of, if not all of, my family members blocked on my social media accounts, because I don't have any interest in finding things out and seeing posts that they make that are going to irritate me. So I just don't go there. So that's my take. I hope it helps, but I would say maybe make cards, business cards, hand them out, follow up with dealers at shows, email them, start correspondence with them. Try social media for the hobby only. And I think setting up as a dealer and just trying to sell off some of the stuff that maybe you're not that interested in anymore, but that could help you at least break even on the table. If you are kind of active in social when you set up as a dealer, you definitely would make a handful of connections that way too. So those are my suggestions. I hope they're good ones, but those are some things that I've done before YouTube that I think have worked.
This one says, since SGC is pretty much in shambles slowly, I'm not a fan of PSA. If we are stranded with limited options, why don't we switch to Beckett? One thing I love about Beckett is their subgrades. At least we know what's wrong with the card itself when we look at subgrades. And a similar and related question says, I think the real question at this rate is if Collectors really shuts down SGC, what do people do with their current SGC slabs, and who do they go to for grading? I would think the majority would choose CGC or BGS, but even if a minority pick PSA, it's a win for Collectors, as the revenue will be as good or better due to the higher priced and upcharges, and I think that's what Collectors saw when wanting to squeeze SGC down.
All right, again, these are the fourth and fifth topics questions, and I just kind of lumped them together because they're very, very similar. And I think that both of these make some really good points. And all of us don't know about the unknown. You know, I did a video a week and a half ago or so about just listing the facts of what was happening with SGC, and it kind of provides some clues on where they might be going. I am going to continue to say that I hope that SGC is around indefinitely. I like SGC. I literally have a PSA order that I literally have an SGC order that I just got back. In fact, I'll probably do like an unboxing video and show how it went, because there were definitely some interesting things that happened. And I think there might be some, I think things at SGC are maybe changing. I'll just say that, but watch my video, you'll see what I mean. But I think that's the question, is if SGC goes away. Because I think a lot of us that have been cool with SGC will continue to be cool with SGC as long as SGC is still around. So the question really boils down to, if Collectors, the parent company, were to end SGC and then try to divert all of the SGC people to PSA, and people don't want to do PSA, then what? That's the question. And also what the question is what does that do to the PSA slabs that we have? Now, I mean, I have a couple of pretty big cards. Some of the bigger cards in my collection are in, did I say PSA slabs? In the SGC slabs. Some of my bigger cards are in SGC slabs. So what happens to those cards 5-10 years into the future if SGC goes away? Again, if SGC doesn't go away, I think this is a moot point for the most part. So let me try to share my thoughts. First, it depends on why you are a collector, and it depends on how much value matters to you, if at all. And it partly depends on, do you think you might be selling or reselling at some point? If you are the type of collector that once a card comes into your collection, it is never leaving your collection, until you are gone. Then I think you could make the argument that your SGC slabs versus your PSA slabs or who to go with, I don't know how much it matters as long as you're enjoying the card. Now, do I think that it could potentially affect the value of cards in SGC slabs? Yes. Let me get to that in a second, though. So I think if people are going to pick graders now, because remember, some of us weren't back in the hobby yet. Some of us were still in the hobby, but there was a time, and it wasn't crazy long ago, where the number one grading company was Beckett. It was the number one grading company. The premium was on Beckett slabs, not PSA slabs. And so, especially with modern, especially like a PSA 10 versus a BGS 9.5, the premium was on the 9.5. And that was real. That actually happened. So things can change. Now, should you go with Beckett instead of CGC or PSA or whoever else that you'd consider? Maybe. It really boils down to what is the reason you collect, how much does value matter, and what is the importance of the slab for you? The problem is going to be that the perceived value of some holders and some grades is not equal. That's the problem. So if 10% of people who are at SGC go over to Beckett and they start getting Beckett grades, which, by the way, I agree. I like the subgrades. I don't mind their bigger slabs. I think they're okay. I have some Beckett slabs. But I could see that probably wouldn't make a big impact because you're going to need more than 10% of those SGC people to go to one company in order for that company to become viable. See, what the problem is the perception for the resale of cards in those different slabs. So if you don't care about that and you like the subgrades, I'd say go to Beckett. The problem is that there is certainly a premium of what PSA slabbed cards sell for over Beckett slabbed cards sell for, even though it might be the same card, right? If I took a card in a PSA holder and I cracked it out and I sent it over to Beckett, same card, and let's just say Beckett gave it the same grade, the same exact card, it would sell for more in most cases in the PSA holder than it would in the Beckett holder. That perception of the turnover of the resale. It was I think it was SGC where recently a lot of the repackers started saying we're not buying SGC anymore. They're only buying Beckett and PSA slabs. They're not buying SGC slabs. Now, if repacker, now keep in mind, I know that SGC is mostly vintage. It's not modern. PSA and BGS are mostly modern and less vintage, although they have some of each. I could see why if the repackers all said no more SGC, that hurts the demand for SGC slabs. And if the demand for SGC slabs goes down, then the value and the resale value and the perceived value of SGC slabs goes down because the demand is less and the resale value is less. So it kind of depends. If value matters to you, if it matters a fairly significant amount, then I don't really think that choosing a non-established, non-quality perceived value slab company is going to be good for you in the long run. And that's what I think PSA and collectors is banking on. They don't want you to leave and they are trying to make it where you don't have an option. I will continue to say this. I really think my hope. I don't think my hope. My hope is that SGC continues to stick around. But their numbers are going down. The repackers are eliminating them from their buying. These are not good signs. If value is something that is important, and for most of us it is. I have bought in the last 2 months multiple PSA slabs and multiple SGC slabs. So I'm not telling you should do this and instead of this. And whenever I give advice, whenever I give suggestions, it's what I'm doing. I am still buying SGC slabs. I am still buying PSA slabs. But I will tell you this. The cards that I buy that are in PSA holders, I feel much more comfortable buying those cards in those holders than I do the SGC cards in the SGC holders at this point. At this point, I feel much more comfortable. And it's not because I think that one is good and one is bad, or one knows how to grade and one doesn't know how to grade. It's because other people could flee from SGC and shun SGC down the road if SGC were to go away. And that could in turn affect the value, which the reason that matters to me is because if I ever want to liquidate a card, it would be harder to liquidate for what the card is probably actually worth if it's in that holder. This is like a chicken and the egg, a cat chasing its tail. We're not going to know the future. We would have to be able to tell the future. We would have to know that SGC is going away. We would have to know that the resale value of SGC starts to go down. We would have to know that PSA is going to remain as number one. There's so many unknowns that at the end of the day, what we probably need to do is we probably just need to keep buying cards that we like the looks of and just hoping and supporting SGC so that they continue to have business. And though I'm a planner and I'm not a reactor, in this case, I have to believe that if a really successful company like SGC, who's been successful for literally 3 decades, they've been a successful company for 3 decades. If SGC were to actually go away, I have to believe that the majority of collectors would still respect those slabs, because it's not like they went out of business because of a scandal. It's not like they went out of business because they didn't know what they were doing. They went out of business because they were purchased. And if they're purchased, that doesn't mean that the previous quality was bad. It just means they're consolidating the two brands. But I also have said, and I also believe, that as time goes by and more people enter the hobby and they'll go, who's SGC? And people say, oh, that's a company that's not around anymore. That could become an issue. My hope is if PSA were to shut SGC down, that they would do something to make good on all those SGC slabs out there. Whether it be some sort of crossover, some sort of new SGC by PSA flip, something to still honor the legacy of SGC, but acknowledge that it's different. That's my hope. So I can't give great advice because even though I keep looking in my crystal ball, I'm not seeing the future. But I would just say continue to track it, continue to see the developments. And if you start to feel one way or another, start to adjust. I will continue to talk about it from time to time, once a month or something. I'll do a video on updates, or maybe every other month. When questions come up in Q&As, I give my take with new developments. But we're just going to have to wait and see. And unfortunately, patience is not something I'm good at. It's not something most of us are good at. But in this case, I don't think we have any other choice. That said, if you have a question for an upcoming episode, don't hesitate. Simply down below in the comments, take a second, type out your question. I'd love to show it and feature it on an upcoming episode.